Hey everybody, Lars here. This is probably a little weird because we haven't even had class yet, and this is your first review video. Stick with me though, and I think you're going to understand what's going on, and I think you're going to get it. Basically, when we do a unit, and the unit begins, you're going to get your slides, you're going to get your Zell chapter, and in the first couple of days, you're going to get a review video, which is basically for the regular 2-week units, like Unit 1 and Unit 2. You're going to get 2 review videos, one for each half of the slides. And for the bigger units, Unit 3, Unit 5, you're going to get 3 videos. Plus, I throw in some side videos here and there for different topics. I think Unit 1, I usually do a 3rd video in order to show you like a program written from beginning to end. I don't want you to, feel unstable or have any trepidation because we haven't met yet. I know some people were looking, on the first day of class, when are we having online class? We're not having online class. It's a hybrid. We basically do things via the Sakai site and asynchronously. The only things we do synchronously are we're going to meet once a month in the last Tuesday of the month. And at the end of units, we always do the quizzes at the same time because the quizzes are open at the same time. So you need to plan to do that at the end of quizzes. As we go along, I think you're going to get it, and I think you're going to be okay. All right, I don't want to take a long time, but I also don't want to run and rush and make it so short that you don't get anything out of it. But we want to fire up Python tonight and get a little code done and see where we stand with the very basics and the very beginnings. It's funny because if I'm not mistaken, we're a couple weeks out from a new version of Python. Right now it's 3.6, but I think at the end of the month or the beginning of February, we're going to have version 3.7 come out. But I suggest that you stick with 3.6 because we now know that all of the libraries that come along with Python, and Python's a language that's very dependent on, standard library stuff and third-party libraries to get to work with it. I mean, if you're a Python programmer and you load your system, you always want to make sure you have these other libraries to go with it. And we're going to talk about that. Don't worry about that. We're going to be dealing with that in Unit 4. But what I do, and I have a Windows system here, it's 8.1. Windows didn't really give me any reason to go out and get version 10. And when I load Python, there we go, we're in Python Data Science. I stick it right in my root directory. So I have a version of 2.7, 3.4, 3.6. I also use some Anaconda stuff and boom, boom, boom. But what I'm going to use for this class is 3.6. And if you have a Windows setup and you can find your Python directory and you go to 3.6 and you go to lib, you'll come down here and you'll see there is a directory called idle-lib. And if you come in here, you can find idle, which is the development environment for the different programs. Where is it? Right here. These are the different idles. And if you take the Windows file and drag it to your desktop, like me, and I have all my Python stuff up here, you will have a Python icon that you can use, and when you double click it, it should give you the Windows version of idle. And this is the idle interactive window that you can actually use to do some things without even bothering to create a program. We can assign a value to a variable and then just type A and it tells us that the variable is 6. We can do the same with B, say B. Okay, we can do A plus B, find out that that's 10. We can actually take that value and assign it to another variable and then print that variable out. Okay, those numbers that we're using are whole numbers. They're what we call in programming integers. You don't have to stick with it. You can do floating point numbers too, so you can have 5.5. Okay, you can do the same with an integer if you want to use it as a float. Just put a 0 at the end of it and then it's a floating point number. All right, idle is what's called dynamically typed. Whatever you give it, it's going to make its best guess at what it is and go with that. And we have a function called the type function. And if you put the variable in there, it'll tell you it's an integer. In our case, I think if we do type E, it's going to tell us a floating point. So those are the 2 different kinds of numbers that we use in arithmetic. When we first start out with Python, we're really only going to use 4 basic data types. Integers for whole numbers, floating point for numbers that have decimal parts after it. The other 2, one is a string. I guess we can really quickly do a string. There's my name, and I give you a W, and it says Lars. The other kind we're going to talk about in the second half of these slides, those are booleans, and those are special variables that their value is either true or false. false. Okay? And then if I did type, I'll leave you hanging on that, type W, that'll tell you that it's a string. All right? So you're going to see the interactive window comes in handy. I mean, later on if you want to debug programs, and if you just want to do simple, really quick snippets of code, you can do it here in the interactive window. Excuse me. Coffee, it's freezing outside. Hey Alexa, tell me about the weather.
Currently, in Metuchen it's 28 degrees with clear skies. Tonight, you can expect mostly clear skies with a low of 20 degrees.
That's actually not so bad considering it was 0 last week. It felt colder outside. When I walked on my porch, it cracked. Cracked under my feet, so it wasn't so bad. All right. So that's the interactive window. Those are simple data types and some of the simple things we're going to use. But let's jump right into it and create a program. I'm going to go through this slowly so you can see everything I'm doing. I'm going to come up here to the interactive window, and I'm going to hit File, and then I'm going to hit New File. And it's going to create a new window for me right there. And I'm going to drag it over here. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in a bunch of number signs. Or we can call them octothorpes. And this is going to allow me to do comments. I will say author Lars. And I will say program test of arithmetic. I think I spelled that right. Okay? And this is where we're going to do some arithmetic stuff, but duty calls, and I must do a hello world if this is going to be our first program. This is a tradition with programmers. If you create your first program in a language, you write your first hello world program. The first program you're supposed to write when you're learning a new language writes hello world to the screen. I do not know where this tradition comes from, but in Python, it's very simple. If you know anything about Java, it's very convoluted and very complex. C++, same thing. In Python, just print hello world, and it runs. So, how do we run this program? There's really two things that we have to do. One, we want to save our file. Now, I'm calling it a program right now. A lot of people in Python and a lot of books will call it a module. Word, module, program, they're kind of used interchangeably in the Python world. When we get to the end of this course, you're going to say, oh yeah, module, because everything's a module and we can change everything around. You'll see where that terminology comes from later. Right now, I'm just calling it a program. And what I want to do basically is I want to save it. So I'm going to go File, and I'm going to say Save As, and I'm not going to save it in Python 3.6, I think. Python Data Science, am I a good doobie or a bad doobie? I'm a good doobie. Spring 2018. I am going to grab a new folder. I'm going to call it Unit 1. I'm going to jump in Unit 1, and I'm going to call this file Rev1. You can see it's already going to make it a Python file, so it'll give it a .py suffix. So I hit Enter, and now I'm saved. You can see it up here. It says rev1.py. So now I'm in pretty good shape. So now I've saved my program. It has a name, and I just have to run the thing. So the way I do that is I come up here and I click Run, and then I hit Run Module. When I click that, the program runs over here to the left in the interactive window. That's where the output is sent when you run your programs. And as you can see, we're good to go. It says Hello World. Okay? Now if I come up here and I say, change that to Hello There World, then I can save. Okay, save, and then run module. And it works again, all right? And that looks tedious and boring, and don't worry, I'm going to save you, and I'm probably going to save you right now. You're going to learn. Most Python programmers, when they learn, and they use idle, and a lot of other IDEs, because a lot of other IDEs know that you learn with idle, so they mimic this functionality. If I want to save, you see that star right there? It means I'm not saved. I just do Control-S. And then if I want to run the program, I don't have to click all those buttons. I just have to hit F5. All right? And if you look down on your keyboard, Control-S, F5 is kind of like a diagonal right up the middle. You're going to learn how to do that in your sleep. You're going to go... So when you see my code running right away after I make a change, don't think it's some kind of magic. It's just me going down to the keyboard and hitting Control-S to save and then F5 to run. And then everything runs. Okay? So you'll get the hang of that and you'll get things running. But there's our first program. I mean, we did a lot. We looked over here. We created some variables. We looked at different variable types. Now we've created our own program. The whole idea of creating your own program is I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this. And now I'm going to go up to bed, or I'm going to walk the dog, or I'm going to do whatever it is I do. I'm going to come back downstairs the next day. I'm going to fire up idle. I'm going to fire up idle. There we go. Thank you. Goodness me. And I'm going to go File, Open. And I'm going to go back to, where is it? Data Science. And I should have given it a name to put it right at the top. Spring, Unit 1, Rev 1. I'm going to open it. And look at that. My program is right back there waiting for me. So now all I have to do is run it, and it runs again. Okay? So I've saved that logic. And I have it to grab the next day and rerun. So I never have to do that again. I can always bring the program back up. Okay? But that's not a very interesting program. What we're going to do is we're going to leave the hello world. We're just going to comment it out by putting a number sign or octothorpe in front of it. And we are going to play around with some arithmetic. I'm going to create a variable called num1. And I'll make it equal to, I don't know, 14. And num2, I'll make that equal to, let's say, 20. So now I'm going to create a variable called the sum, not sum, and you'll find out why a little bit later. And I'm going to make it equal to num1 plus num2. And then I'm going to print the sum. So let's see what we get. All right, we get 34, if I'm not mistaken. That's correct. So let's take a look at some other things. I'll just call that diff and not the diff. We'll go num2, won't play around with negatives, minus num1, and we'll call the prod num1 times num2, and then we'll go q1 for quotient equals num2 divided by num1, and then we're going to watch me work. Q2 is going to be equal. I say equal. I'm going to explain why I'm completely wrong in a second. Num2, what's that about? Okay, and so let's go down here and put in our variables. Prod Q1, better make that cap. Python cares about capital versus lowercase, because capital versus lowercase is different as far as Python is concerned. So make sure if you create a variable with uppercase that you use it. Now, real quick for explanation. I keep saying equal. It's not equal. It's a sign. A single equal sign means assignment in the Python programming language. You're going to see later when we compare values that you're going to put two equal signs together to denote equivalency. All right? Right now, a single one means a sign. But if I run this, what am I going to get? All right, I get all these numbers laid out here. So the sum is 34. Good. The difference is 6. That's correct. The product is 280. That is correct too, because 140 times 2 is 280. Okay. The first division, 20 divided by 14, is 1.42 whatever, boom, 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 boom. Okay. The second division, Q2, num2, 2 slashes is only 1. Okay. 2 slashes in Python is what's called integer division or floor division. It's always going to round down to the nearest integer. Okay? And I think that's true. No matter, let's put a 19 there and check it out again. Yeah, you're always going to round down. Okay? Actually, I didn't want to do that. If I wanted to test that theory, I wanted to do that. Let's see. Okay? You're always going to round down. You could see if you rounded this 1.8, you would have gone up to 2, but it's floor. So you're always going to go down to 1 in this instance. Okay? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to know that this operator right here is going to give you floor division. Even if, and I'm going to do this too so you can see it. If I look at the type of Q1, it's going to give me a float, because that's what that particular thing returns. But if I look at the type of Q2, it's going to give me an integer, because that's what integer division returns. So when we run this, you can see I get class float and class integer, because the regular division, the first slash, gives me a floating point number, and then the second division gives me the integer. Okay? All right, I'm going to leave that stuff there. We're going to do 2 more things. How do I want to do this? I'm going to come here and I'm going to say, well, what do? I can use num1, I guess. I will say SQU squoo equals num1 multiplication 2. Okay? And then I will print squoo. And what's going to happen? Why is that? Oh, because I hit F6. Okay, it gives me 121. Basically, 2 asterisks is exponentiation. I can raise something to the third if I desire. I don't have to stick with square. And so you do exponentiation with that right there. Okay, which kind of makes sense because what is multiplication is pretty much addition on steroids. Exponentiation is multiplication on steroids. So instead of 1 multiplication, you get 2 multiplications. So it kind of makes sense. The other thing we are going to do, should I use num1 and num2 for this, is I'm going to call it mod, and I'm going to assign it the value num1 percentage sign num2. Okay? And then I'll come down here and I'll print it with squoo mod. Alright, I get 11. Alright, why did I get 11? Squoo and mod. Num1 mod num2. Let me do that a different way because I thought I was going to be getting a different value. Okay, that makes more sense to me. Squoo, you understand, we just talked about it. Mod is assigned num2, which is 20, and this right here is called modulus. Okay? Modulus 11. Think about it as division. Except you don't get the number of times it went in equally, you get the remainder. It should have been called the remainder operation, okay? Because you get the remainder of the operation. 20 divided by 11, the remainder is 9, okay? If I did 22 modulus 3, the 3 is going to go in 7 times, but it's going to leave 1 behind, so you're going to get 1. And that's what you get, 1, okay? If you made it a 23, you would get the 2. All right? So basically, you've got just 3 different operators here that I want you to be aware of. You've got the floor division. Really, the first 4 work normally as you'd expect them to. Then you have the floor division right there, which always is going to give you an integer and always is going to go down. Okay? Exponentiation. You don't have to just square things, or you don't have to just find a function that we'll show you later on out of some math library. You can actually get things to different powers by using 2. And then you want to know modulus. Modulus is weird. Should be called remainder. But modulus is weird because it looks like some little parlor trick. And maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't use it. You'll be shocked how many times you're going to use it. It's very good to see if things divide into things evenly and what remainders are. And I can guarantee you you're going to make good use of it in your homework assignments moving forward from this day till the end of the course. I digress. We got to get moving. All right. So that's pretty much the arithmetic operations and some of the things. If you're at home furiously typing along, stop. Because I'm taking all of this code and I'm going to put it on Sakai. I don't know if anybody's noticed. I haven't looked yet. But the power went out in the Hill building today. So Sakai went down, the university website went down, everything went down Thursday night tonight. Around, I'm guessing 7-ish, maybe 7:30-ish. And as of 9, it wasn't back up. I mean, I'm shooting, I don't know if you can see the clock on my screen. It's 9:39 right now. Islanders are losing 4-1. What a bunch of bums. As good as their offense is, that's how bad their defense is. And sometimes the offense is not so good. The defense is always bad. Always. And they're losing to the Bruins 4-1. Unbelievable. All right, again, I digress. Because I want to show you one more thing after this. So, I'm going to teach you a little trick. You see, if you have a string in Python, idle turns it green. Well, there's a way to make a really big string. 1, 2, 3 quotes, and then you end it 1, 2, 3 quotes. All right, and it doesn't really comment it out. It's green. It creates a big string, but it doesn't create an error. You're not assigning it to anything. It's just sitting there in the middle of the program. So a lot of Python programmers use that to create multi-line comments. So you can use that in the future if you want to do multi-line comments. Just 3 quotes again at the end, blah, 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 and it makes everything green. So right now we have all this written in here, but it's all comments. So if I saved it and ran it, nothing happens. Now there's no error, but nothing really happens because everything's commented out. All right, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back and use our friend squoo. But you can see in that program up there, I have the variable num1, and it's assigned 11. And num2 is assigned 20. And I can see all of the arithmetic relations with those two numbers. That program, after you've run it once or twice, is pretty boring. Okay? You got to remember, most people aren't programmers. They're not going to be able to come in here and change the code. So how can I create a situation where I don't have to stick with those two numbers all the time, that I could give the program as it's running the data that I want to use? Okay? There's a way we can do that. And we're going to look at it right now. There's a function, and I'm going to call this num3, called the input function. Not in input, and you can see it's difficult to see on my screen, really, or maybe it's just my crummy eyes, but idle will turn functions purple. So you should see that behavior in your own commercial. I'm going to say input, and then I'm going to type a prompt. I'm going to say enter a number, because I'm very polite. And then when the program runs, it's expecting me to type something else, so it didn't let me go down. It's going to say enter a number and wait for me to put in a number. Let me give it a colon and a space so that looks good when it runs. And then I can take that number 3 and do something with it. So first, I'm just going to take num3 and print it. And we're going to see what we get. So I save, I run, and it says enter a number. How very polite. I am going to enter, what am I going to enter? I will enter 23. And it prints 23. Okay, look at that. I'm in pretty good shape. But I don't have to just print the number. I can also do arithmetic. So I will recreate squoo, and I will say squoo equals num3, that number squared. And then I will print string literal, the square of end it, comma, num3, so it'll print that variable and not the word number 3. The square of that is, comma, and then squoo. All right. So what that should do is print the square of, let's say I'm going to give it 4. The square of 4 is 16. And I will have computed 16 here, where I assign num3 brought to the second power to the variable squoo. Okay. So, is this going to work? I know for a fact it's not, which is why we're doing this in the first place. But let's run it. I'm going to run it. I'm going to save it. Oh, look at that. Enter a number. So I'm going to enter 4. Boom. And it explodes. You do not have to understand that. That is a Python error message. By the end of this course, I promise you, you will understand it. And it's really very simple and easy if you think about it. But something has gone wrong here, and I have to figure out what it is. So I was able to enter a number, but then when I got down to this print line, something blew up because it didn't like things. Remember when I told you at the beginning of this video that we were going to be able to use the interactive window for debugging? Well, we can do it right here. I can type in num3, and it'll tell me what was input to the program. So I click that, and it gives me a 4. Okay, so that's not the end of the world. What was my other variable? My other variable was squoo, S-Q-U. So let me type in squoo and see what squoo's got to tell me. I type squoo, and I get a big error. It says squoo is not defined. So it's almost like it never got to the squoo part. Something else blew up. So I start looking at this code, and I'm saying, okay, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And then I notice something. Come look over here at this 4. Do you see that? Via the magic of Camtasia, I certainly hope I'm zooming in on it. I bet you I am. And you can see, look at that. It's surrounded by quotes. That is a string, okay? It's looking at that 4 as if it were a word or a symbol, not a number, not an integer that we can use in arithmetic. We can only do arithmetic with numbers, integers or floating points. That's a string, okay? You can't raise a string to the second power. So what we have to do is take that string and turn it into an integer. And doing that is very simple. There is a function called int, which performs a function called casting. And the input here of the input statement, when I put in that 4, it's going to be a string. but that's going to be the input to the integer function. An integer is going to say, take that string and give me the numeric form of it. So that num3 will now be assigned the integer 4. And because it has the integer 4, it can now do arithmetic. And if the programming gods are with us, when I rerun this code, it is actually going to work. And it's going to say the squares. My OCD will not allow that. The square of 4 is 16. The tension is killing me. We need to run this. Enter 4. And it works. Okay? So you need, at the end of the day, to remember that the input function returns a string. So what we wanted to do is take that string and turn it into an integer, something that we could use. Okay? And then we just went ahead and grabbed a new variable and then printed them out like this. And then, magic of programming, I can do it with any bunch of numbers I care about now. Okay? And now I've got a working program that takes input from the user and tells them what the square of a number. Now, we're pretty sure we're pretty good on those numbers that I'm putting in. What about that guy right there? Well, Python is still helping us out. Okay? So that's pretty much it. Like I said before, you aren't going to have to worry about anything because I'm going to take rev1.py and I'm going to put it up in Sakai. I'm not going to put it up in Sakai until Sakai is back up, but that's a chicken egg thing because you aren't seeing this unless you got it from Sakai. So Sakai is fixed. I can tell you that right now because if it wasn't fixed, I wasn't able to post the link to this video, so you would have no reason to be looking at it. But as I created this video, I think Sakai was down. All right? At the end of videos, what do? I remove the comments so that everything's out in the open and we run the whole program again. It's called a grand finale. This is going to be the most boring grand finale in the history of grand finales. I'll give that 23, and that's it. It's just that little part there. But if you think about it, you got to see a lot of things today. You got to see the interactive window run. You saw some variable assignments. You saw we have integers and floats and strings, and we're able to create programs. You give them a name, and then you're able to run them. It's not that difficult an operation. You'd used comments. You used the print function. You assigned variables. You were able to see how to use the arithmetic operators and look at the arithmetic relations between a bunch of things. Floor division, regular division, modulus, exponentiation, okay? And then to finish things up, we looked at two different things that are going to help you write useful programs. One is the input function. It's going to help you get input from the user while the program is running. And the second concept you needed to wrap your head around is what's called casting. There's going to be times when you're going to want to take a string and turn it into an integer. When you read numbers from a file, a lot of times they come in as a string and you want to run them through a process that turns them into numbers. In the same vein, sometimes you're going to want to take a number and turn it into a string because it's easier to manipulate strings. And you're going to see a little bit about that in Unit 2, how we have a whole bunch of different commands and functions and ways to manipulate strings. So sometimes it's easier to take a number, make it a string, play around with it, and then turn it back into a number. So sometimes that comes in handy too. Okay? All right, I'm going to take this code and I'm going to put it on Sakai for you so you have no worries. It'll be in your Unit 1 resources. As far as announcements are concerned, I don't want to kill you dead with announcements because in 2 days over the weekend, I'm going to shoot the second video for this unit so that you'll have both of the review videos that pertain to your slides at the end of the weekend, and then I can give you the assignments. What you're going to learn going forward is that I try to get you all your resources for the unit 1 week before the unit ends. And if I'm not mistaken, the unit ends on like January 29th. So I want to make sure that Monday, or at least by the beginning of the day, Tuesday, you have your slides, you have your Zell chapters, and you have all your review videos. So everything you're supposed to look at, you have. Because the way I designed the course and the units, as far as being a hybrid is concerned, I don't want you waiting until the last day of the unit to do all of this work. It's a paint job, okay? Basically, doing computer programming in this way is a 3-step process. The first coat is you spend the first 3 or 4 days with the resources. You read the slides, you read the Zell chapter, Maybe you play around with some of the exercises. Then at the end of that process, you start looking at the videos. And you start getting the videos, and you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. That's the part where you're the learner. That's the first coat of paint. Then there's the second part. The second part is when you get the assignments. Now you have a job to do, okay? Now you're the practitioner. Now you're going to take all of that knowledge that you gained when you were in the learning phase, and you're going to put it to use by completing the assignments and doing all of your assignment stuff. That's the second coat of paint. That's when you're the practitioner and you're actually doing something. Then there's the third stage, when you're studying for the quiz. Then when you're actually taking the quiz, that's when you're actually the expert. You've learned, you've already used it, now you're going to report out as an expert, and you're going to answer questions when people ask you questions about these topics. So it's 3 different phases, it's 3 coats of paint as you go along. First you're the learner, then you're the practitioner, then you're the expert reporting out because you're taking a quiz at the very end of the unit. And that's the way it's designed. It's not designed to wake up the day before the unit ends and say, oh, shit, I got to do all this. I got to write the thing. That's a crummy way to learn. That's why you're always going to hear me say, don't procrastinate. Engage with the resources early. I'm going to be like a broken record. Engage with the resources. You're going to get bored out of your minds listening to me. It's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. I know we're not going to meet until Tuesday, the 30th, I think. The day after that, Monday, I don't know. I'm not going to look at the calendar. So we're pretty much going to be done with Unit 1 before we meet, which is kind of weird. It's odd timing. Usually we have a meeting during the first unit. If you're in the fall, the first class will usually be a meeting because it'll be September 3rd or 4th, and it'll be the first Tuesday of the month instead of the last Tuesday of the month, which is what happens in the spring version of this class. But I don't want you to feel anxious. I don't want you to feel nervous. Everything is fine. Read the slides. Link to it is in the resources. Everybody, a lot of people are getting in there and doing their introductions, so you're going to be good with the forum post. Forum posts need to be in 3 days before the end of the unit. I'm going to send you ample reminders of deadlines and dates and all of that stuff, so you have no worries about that kind of stuff, all right? Right now, you really don't have to do anything. You want to get a working version of Python and idle on your computer. Some people already may or may not be having trouble with idle. Look, it's what our graders are going to use. It's what I use in these videos. It's probably a good idea to dance with the girl that you brought to the dance. That said, if you want to use another IDE, if you want to use Eclipse or Wing IDE or Spider from Anaconda, which is what I use, but not when I teach, and something else, then that's fine with me. The problem is, if you give me code that doesn't work because there's something IDE specific in it, you're SOL. Okay? We're going to be grading, my TAs are going to be grading these programming assignments in an idle environment, all right? Another thing that I don't like, and I'm going to be honest with you, this is graduate school, I'm not here to keep secrets from you, is I don't like complicated IDEs getting in the way of learning the language. Because all of a sudden, instead of worrying about assignment statements and floor division and how input works, you're worried about, well, how come this doesn't color my code this way? And how do I do a stop point? And how do I do da-da-da-da? I don't care about your IDE at the end of the day. Couldn't give a rat's ass about your IDE. I care about you learning Python properly and you getting the beginning of imperative computer programming laid down in your brain. So I use idle because I don't want the IDE getting in the way. Okay? We're in pretty good shape because in a couple days I am going to do another video. But if I'm not mistaken, I pretty much got to everything I wanted to get to. It's going to be a running joke because I try to... Hold on a minute. Let's figure it out. 34. That's not the end of the world. That really isn't. I always say I want to be short with the videos, but I end up going long because I'm a gabber. But at the end of the day, it's good because it's good experience and you get to see things and you get to learn things and you get to do things. All of my colleagues say I'm nuts. And they say I'm nuts for 2 different reasons. First reason is that I shoot these videos fresh every semester. I don't have like 18 or 20 canned Python videos that I'm going to send your way. When you make mistakes in class and we learn, I want to be able to comment on that. I want to be able to talk about, the different things that are going on in our class. I want to make it almost as if this is not the replacement, but this is a good analog for maybe a class you might have had during the week. So that, later on when I start to know people through the forums and things like that, I can use people's names and I can do different things. And I don't even know if I would be able to shoot a generic video, because if I shot a generic video, it means I would have to go a half hour without complaining, talking to Alexa. Hello, Alexa. How are you? Oh, she didn't turn on. Good. Complaining about, it's winter right now, so I'll be complaining about the Islanders. In the spring, I'll be complaining about the Mets because they lose every night, just like the Islanders. They lose every night. My life is miserable. And I don't know if I could shoot a generic video. It would be very weird. I could, but it would be boring. Who cares? I'll do it like the great courses. I'll put like a bust of Caesar in back of me and some bland, crummy wallpaper. The second thing that I do, which kind of goes against the popular idea, is everybody tells me, hey, when you do videos nowadays, they need to be short, in and out. Code Academy, it's like 8 minutes, and this place is like 2 minutes, and this place is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, first of all, I don't feel like doing quick little 7 minutes, get in and get outs. And you're not morons. You know what I just did for you was kind of busted up in 3 different segments. We did some interactive Windows stuff. Then we did a Hello World. Then we did some arithmetic. And then we did input and casting. I mean, you're smart enough that you can break those things down in your own mind and that I can give them to you all in one big thing. When you eat your dinner, you don't get the vegetables, eat the vegetables, and then you're done. And then you get maybe some chicken, and you eat some chicken, and then you're done, and blah, blah, blah. You get it all on one big plate. So just think of these videos as one big plate, all right? Because I take heat for that, and I take heat for doing them every semester, but it's not so bad. At the end of the world, it takes me a half hour, 40 minutes, and then it's going to take me another half hour to edit it, because I have to go back, and I have to do close-ups, and I have to cut and paste, and do some other stuff, blah, blah, blah. But once I'm done with that, it literally only takes a half hour for the computer to crank away and create the video, and then all I have to do is upload it to YouTube, which takes all of a minute. So it's not that big a deal at the end of the day. And it's better for you guys, because then I get to react to your stuff, and we get to, go back and forth the real way you're supposed to when you're teaching people how to do stuff. All right, I've gabbed on enough. I'm going to get out of here, but you will have this program up in your Sakai resources. You'll have no worries. And over the weekend, hopefully, I guess, beginning of the day, Saturday, I will record the second review video and get that out to you. And then probably end of the day, probably after the football games on Sunday, I will post the assignments for Unit 1. And then you'll have the entire week to do the assignments, put them up, and then have a couple of days to maybe study a little, reread the resources, and get ready for the quiz. The quiz is going to be on the last day of the unit, which I think is Monday the 29th, and then the very next day we meet for the first time. 251 Beck, I think, put a gun to my head. I'm not so sure. All right? If you have any questions, put them in the Sakai forum. I look every day, every other day, and it's better if you think you have a general question to put it there. That way I can answer it, and all your classmates get to see the answer. That said, if you send me an email, I don't mind that either. That's not a big deal. And if you do ask me about something important that I want the whole class to know, I can hop in Sakai and do an announcement. You're going to see I do a ton of announcements. You're going to be sick of me. Very, very shortly. You're going to be sick of me. All right? All right. Then you be good. You have a good night, and I'll talk to you later. I'll see you in a few days. Bye.